Hi, everyone. How are you doing? Cool. So, Prometheus is good for your small startup. Who we are and why. Well, my name is Nacho. Well, Ignacio, my real name, but if you happen to know that all Ignacios were called Nacho, yeah, like the Mexican food, I've heard that joke before. You can contact me at that tweet, so Carretero. And you should definitely follow ShuttleCloud and ShuttleCloud Engineering, especially engineering, because we usually talk about some technical stuff. And if you want to participate, you are free to do that. I'm realizing that my slides are a little bit dark, but I hope it's fine. So who is ShuttleCloud? So we are a startup that was incubated in Techstars in 2011. We are based in Chicago and Madrid. And we basically offer an API for email and contacts import. Who are our customers? Usually ISPs and email and address book providers. Those are three examples because they are I've chosen those three because they are very different from each other. So Google is one of our customers. Stanford University, Comcast, we have, if you are curious about it or you don't believe it, you can go to Gmail. You have a Gmail account to settings, accounts and import, and the people that's importing your email and contacts behind Google, it's us. So some facts about us. Yeah, can you read it? I hope so. So thanks to us, Gmail has already imported 3 million users using our API. We have some SLAs of high availability, around 99.5%, and we comply with them still. Hopefully, we'll keep complying with them. We've had some peaks of 6 terabytes per hour, data migrated. Usually, some numbers of what we do, around 18,000 migrations per day, around 30 million emails per day we migrate, 3 million contacts per day, and we support 247 providers from all over around the world. Enough about us, and let's go to the topic. What you can expect from this presentation. First, I would like to do a couple of disclaimers, because maybe you're expecting something from me that I cannot provide. And then I would like to talk about how we implemented a monitoring solution, in this case Prometheus, what we had before and why we didn't have any monitoring solution, how we did it, how we dealt with it, all of the things we did wrong, because we did many things wrong, and all of the things we've already corrected because we've been iterating with what we have. So we would like to share our story. First of all, everything I explained, we're only 6 people in the engineering team. Actually, there are more people in this room than there are in my company. So 6, right now we are 7. There's one more. So I want to thank to all of them because we don't have any. First thing I want to explain that maybe you can resonate with that in your companies, that we don't have a monitoring department. We don't have a proper department dedicated to do that. So all of us, each one of us is helping or trying to get our hands dirty with it. So yeah. Second thing, obviously, I'm not here to tell you how to do things, and don't expect the perfect model on how you should implement Prometheus, because I'm not the one that's going to tell you that. And third, I love putting memes everywhere, so I'm sorry about that. Before Prometheus, first, as you can imagine, a startup, we didn't have as many projects as we have right now. We didn't have as many customers. And to be honest, our first goal was to grow and not to monitor, even though we had some things in place. Not perfect, as you might see. First thing, we had some automatic scripts that actually monitored all of our operation metrics, such as, yeah, this hard drive is getting full. I know there are a lot of things wrong with that, like how do you get that email if the instance is not available or if it's down? I know, but yeah, somehow it worked for some of the things that we were practically monitoring most of those things, but we had those emails. For our APIs, we had external service. We still have it, by the way, just in case, which is Pingdom, and it sends pings from all over the world to your APIs, and you receive beautiful alerts if you're not up, which is nice. And for all our business metrics, we trusted in a dashboard. And we had some daily and monthly and weekly reports of what we are doing. Like, hey, yesterday you migrated for this project, I don't know, whatever number from migrations from this provider, and things like that. So as you can imagine, we actually did a lot of things manually. Like, we reviewed those emails, we checked that dashboard. That doesn't scale. I want to share with you a little bit how it's a very simplistic model about how we got those metrics, because this is going to explain afterwards some of the decisions we made. Every single migration we run, it saves a status in our status database. It's a non-relational data model. Doesn't matter, in our case, CouchDB. And we have sort of a system that processes those statuses in a relational model. Like, hey, from this, in the status database, you receive all statuses, and this one transforms that to this migration from this provider, finished with that status at that time. Great. And with all these data points, we had another system, that a view controller model system, that the controller sort of processes that information, and different views, one to push the data to the dashboard, another one to send the weekly, daily, monthly emails. And yeah, I mean, this is the kind of thing when you talk to other startups, like the things you don't want to share, like we don't have a monitoring system in place for everything. But we realized that, and that didn't scale. So we were looking for a monitoring solution. And one day, it was not our priority before, but it was at a given point. Like, it is right now the priority. So I'm going to tell you why we chose Prometheus, not that one, but the other one. And because this is usually the first question that someone, because we got asked, like, why you chose Prometheus. I'd love to tell you a story that someone recommended Prometheus to us, but it was actually the other way around. We got Sensu, so we asked on the DevOps community in Spain, and the majority of people recommended Sensu. But we decided to do that in an agile way. So we wanted to try, like, let's spend a couple of 3 iterations and try one system, and if it doesn't work, let's try the next one. To do so, we first analyzed which one is going to be the first. So we chose Prometheus to be the first one. First, because at the very beginning, we didn't have a lot of idea about how our metrics should look like. One of the things that you can do with Prometheus, you don't have to have that metric model decided from the very beginning. So you can add, if you happen to know, and I guess you all know, you have labels, so you can add those labels for your time series and have different time series for that. You can remove them afterwards. You can create new metrics. So that was a very good point for us, because we didn't want to spend a lot of time deciding what we want to have time afterwards. Then, to do that test, that small test, you don't need any external services with Prometheus. For example, with Sensu, you need our messaging systems, such as RabbitMQ. We also happen to have, at that time, for a different story, an internal DNS server. And Prometheus allowed that service discovery using our internal DNS, so DNS, which was nice. And it's a Go file, so it was very easy to install and test. So we gave it a try. And this is the first things we did, sort of an experiment. Like, first, we provisioned all of our machines using Ansible, so it was very easy for us to adapt one playbook to manually feed all from our Ansible inventory to Prometheus, all of the services that had to be monitored. Then we changed to that DNS service discovery, as I explained. And if you just use Prometheus with the node exporter, you happen to have most of the operation metrics we had before, just by default. And the ones that we didn't have, I'm sorry, because you cannot read anything at all. We used I'm not telling that you should use it, but we did sort of let's do something quick. We use the text file in the node exporter that you can create a text file with all your metric and metric results, and Prometheus can pull the data from it. It's not perfect, but there are some things that we still don't know how to do. I will explain that later. Like, it's important for us to monitor the status of the replications in CouchDB. So some custom things that we need to be sure that are working. Yeah, some of the first alerts for this experiment, we only had operation metrics, so we only had operation alerts, obviously. So hard drive usage, one example, if an instance is up and down. And at that time, we only used absolute thresholds. Yeah, if the hard drive reaches 85% of capacity, send us an email, 90%, page someone. And this comes by default. Like the node exporter, well, not the alerts, you have to set the threshold yourself, but the metrics, just by installing the node exporter, you have all those metrics available. It's something. So at that moment, we realized that it was quite easy and easier than what we expected. So we kept on working on Prometheus. I'd love to tell you a story like, yeah, then we tried another system and then another, but no, we only tried actually Prometheus and we kept with it. So that's it. And if we go back, if you remember, I explained you that system. So once we have Prometheus in place, we need the business metrics. We already have the operation metrics. The business metrics, well, we have those two publishers that are views from that system. So it was pretty straightforward to create another publisher that pushes data to Prometheus. I said push and not pull. And that's one of the first things that you shouldn't do. Don't do that. But we did, because it was very easy. That's why I wanted to explain to you what we had, because it was pretty straightforward to create another publisher to just push the data to Prometheus. There happened to be another component, which is the push gateway, which shouldn't be used for that. But in case you have one of the legit cases where you should push data to Prometheus instead of pooling, you can use that. But it was not our case. But yeah, we used it as a metric cache so that Prometheus could pull the data from it. The metrics. How wrong we were with them. Like, we chose 3 metrics for the business metrics. Incoming operations last 10 minutes, incoming statuses last 10 minutes. Yeah, we had more, but those are the key 3 ones. And migrations last 5 minutes. We chose gauges, and we did the aggregation in the metrics. So in the exporter, in this case, the publisher. And we were wrong. If you have to bring a key idea from this talk, don't do that. So really consider if you want to do gauges where there shouldn't be any gauges. And some of the unexpected consequences, and this is a real story, you cannot see that, yeah, I'm sorry. So maybe, I don't really know is there some, oh, yeah, there, but there are too many maybe. Sorry about that. No problem. Better? Well, no problem. I'm sorry. So this happened to someone. Someone got paged at 3 a.m. in the morning because incoming migrations for one provider were not coming. So that was critical. He woke up. He thought he fixed it, and he indeed fixed it, but the alert was triggered again and kept triggered. Why? Because if you see the one below, if operations resume and you are aggregating in a time window until you get to that threshold, imagine it's 80%. In the last 10 minutes, imagine it's not 10 minutes, but 2 hours. If in 2 hours you do not reach to 80%, it's gonna get, so that you're gonna get that alert triggered. So maybe you have to wait an hour and a half with the problem already solved until that alert is not triggered anymore. And at 3 a.m. in the morning, it was not something he was thinking about, and he freaked out, and it's understandable. So that's one of the unexpected consequences that you shouldn't, you could suffer if you do things wrong as we did. Another thing, it's very important for us to be in high availability. As I told you, 99.5%. Obviously, we're not in one availability zone in AWS, so we're in different availability zones and different cloud providers. So if you happen to have, because how our system was designed, if you have 2 Prometheus publishers, the ones we designed, pushing data to the push gateway, same data or replicas of the data, we got wrong information. And it was not because, it was that everything we designed at that time was not right. Because as you can see, publisher code is not really tied to instance of itself, as the operations were not atomic, because we were aggregating data, blah, blah, blah. So as we couldn't do that with the, and that was not the problem of the publisher, but the whole system that I explained before. It was not atomic. So we had to clusterize it, having one master pushing the data to the push gateway. This got too complicated. And at that's when we decided to do a revamp, another iteration, like, hey, yeah, using legacy systems was not a good idea. So we decided to start it from scratch. If you remember, we had that, again. And if you analyze this chart, you can see that if Prometheus is monitoring the status of your system, and the data is in that CouchDB, there are 1, 2, 3, 4 systems in between that can fail. And you can lose your data. So why don't we create an exporter, so the Prometheus way that it should be, that pulls the data from that CouchDB, and Prometheus can access it. And this is what we did. So we created an operation exporter that wasn't a standalone app and not a Chrome-based script that we had before. And we changed, finally, the metrics to be counters. We trusted the aggregation in Prometheus, which is much better. Don't do the aggregation yourself. Let Prometheus do the aggregation for you. And it can handle resets. So it can be semi-stateless. Like, you can have state when the container is running, but you can shut it down and turn it on again. And Prometheus can handle that reset for you. Nice. So goodbye, Prometheus publisher. Also, right now, high availability, having 2 replicas, it's very easy, because as I said, you can do the aggregation in Prometheus, and you can just say, pick the max of both, of any of them. Like, if one counter is 1001 and the other 1002, probably the 1002 has better information or more up-to-date, so pick the max of them. The metrics, finally, counters. Operation request total, operation statuses total, and operation errors total. Works smooth. You can do the aggregation in Prometheus. Fine. The alerts. I told you before that most of the alerts we did on the very beginning were absolute thresholds. I don't really know what I was expecting, because you cannot read anything. I'm very optimistic, but there are 2 alerts. The first one just sets a threshold, like if the capacity of that hard drive is over 90%, send an email. And we don't do that anymore. There's a magic sugar function, predict linear, where you can tell, hey, if this hard drive with the current rate is going to get full in 2 days, send me an email. So you get an email 2 days before. Well, it's an estimation, but you get an email 2 days before, like, with that rate, this hard drive is going to get full in 2 days. So you have enough time to handle that situation, and maybe look for the culprit who put that verbose flag on. Just kidding. We're right now on the Alert Manager 0.5, so this is obviously obsolete, but I want to tell you that we kept with one older version, and suddenly we updated, and I wanted to show with this slide that there are a lot of changes being done. Good ones. Before, alerts were a condition-based. It was a condition-based list. Right now, a tree. So they get grouped. You get only one. If you have, from a same project cluster, 5 instances down, you only get one email saying these 5 instances. Instead of having 5 different alerts, imagine you have 2,000 instances. Yeah. So very cool stuff. The PagerDuty integration works perfectly. And we really trust on it. So we don't do as many manual operations as we did on the very beginning. And that's the truth. Like, we really trust our monitoring system and alert system. And I know that everything is working if I don't receive any email or I get paged, which was not really the case before. Is that what we have right now? Not really. Because if you remember from the very beginning, we had a third party for the dashboard and all that complex system for the dashboard. Grafana has an awesome integration with Prometheus. and it's very straightforward. So we got rid of that, and it's literally a matter of hours to set it up, even less, and set it up with all the charts. I mean, everything. And you get a fancy dashboard with everything you want. Another good, very cool stuff is that all the charts the data you have on the charts uses exactly the same PromQL language that you use in Prometheus. So you don't have to learn something different, just copy. You try in Prometheus, copy and paste, and you get the charts in Grafana. Very straightforward.
What had the integration? Sorry.
I didn't get that, sorry?
What had the integration?
Grafana. Yeah. Anything else missing? If you remember, I talked about Pingdom, so black box monitoring. Black box monitoring, we didn't have anything internal from us, and it's very easy and straightforward. There's a component called Black Box Spotter that not only can monitor if your URLs APIs, so external services are up, but also you can have some metrics on the certificate's expiring date, and it can tell you like, in 2 months, there's one certificate that will expire. You can set at that metric, which simplifies your life if you have different external URLs and different certificates. This was explained, there's a link to a Robust Perception that's a company. They have a blog with a lot of cool information and cool of tweaks you can do on Prometheus. We got that from there, so kudos. And finally, is this what we have? Yeah, and it works, and it's perfect. And I promise I didn't think of anything political when I used that slide, so sorry about that. And this is my favorite part. Like, you get asked, like, yeah, cool. You have an awesome company, a great budget, and some very expensive stuff. And that's not true. That's why I told you that it's very good for your startup. Right now, we are currently monitoring 200 instances. We're a small startup, not thousands. It's 200. We only use one Prometheus instance in GCE. We should be in high availability. I will come to that. One hard drive. We have a default retention period of 15 days, which is unnecessary because we don't go back so many days. There are support for long-term storage in the latest releases, but we don't use it. And so it should be less even. And one meta monitoring instance, which is a micro, you can do your numbers. It's not that, so they are not really up to their 100%. So the machines are going fine. I'm not really sure what's the memory of an N1 standard. I think it's, or you mean how much memory it's using? Yes. Not in our case. Not at all. I don't know by heart, but maybe, well, maybe I was thinking that maybe we chose carefully our labels so that we don't have a lot of time series. So we only have like don't remember the word, what's called cardinality, I think it is, or what's, yeah, so our cardinality is not really extreme. So maybe that's the reason. But we didn't have, I don't know what's the usage of that machine because we never got any problem with it. Like, it always went fine. So some of the things that we are working right now, I told you in the very beginning, we have some custom metrics that we're still using the text file of the node exporter. We would like to probably, in this case with CouchDB, probably open source a solution for the CouchDB current exporter, which exposes metrics about how your CouchDB is performing, but not the data or the replicas or whatever you have inside the CouchDB. So just the performance of the database itself. Maybe if we have time, we would love to implement that because we need it, but it will come soon. We don't have Prometheus in HA. We should. It's one of our, one of the things that we should be doing, and it can be done. I'm not saying that it cannot. It's just that we haven't got the time to do it. This is something we are working in. Like, instead of having a global Prometheus monitoring all of your projects, you can have one Prometheus in every project because it actually simplifies the alert system. If you have supercritical projects and normal projects, the thresholds you're using are not the same. So you have to have conditional alerts like, hey, if this comes from a supercritical project, then say half an hour trigger. If this comes from a normal, you don't need to be paged at when you don't have any incoming migrations, for example, in half an hour, in 5. So you are adding a complexity that you can solve if you have separated Prometheus with alert, excuse me, with different alert systems with different alerts set up for each one of them. That's very interesting. And we don't have any instrumentation in our code. Right now, we are good with the operation metrics, the business metrics, and the black box monitoring. That's something we should do for us, the development team, because it would ease our lives. If there's something wrong, exceptions, whatever, you guys know it. But we will first do the HA and then go to instrumenting our metrics. And I hope I hope that you've seen that it's something simple, that you don't have to have a lot of resources, economical and developer resources to implement that solution. And I hope I encouraged you a little bit to use it, or at least to give it a try. So thank you.
In the case where you may go to multiple instances,
What's that?
how do you plan to dashboard that? You still just plug in URLs to those different instances into your Grafana dashboard?
We actually have separated dashboards because we are very client-oriented. So we have like huge clients with their projects. So we really don't have, right now, even if it comes from one Prometheus and one Grafana, we have separated dashboards for each one of them. So it would be seamless to have separated Grafanas on top of each Prometheus, or one Grafana connected to different Prometheus. I'm not really sure if you can do that, but yeah, I hope.
So you guys put the business metrics and operational in one Prometheus instance, or do you use something else for business metrics?
No, it's everything in Prometheus. Like it's one Prometheus right now, and yeah, we only have the only thing we had to do is that operation exporter there. So that operation exporter is something homemade because it's specific to our case from getting data and processing it from that CouchDB. That's the only thing we had to implement.
You mentioned that because you're not getting paid, you expect that everything is okay. But how do you know that that's just not because the other manager or whatever it is?
True, that's a very fair question. We still have the email reports, we have them in place, and we do some periodical reviews on if everything's going fine and so on. And also, most of the metrics we have right now, so we have, to be honest, sometimes, and this is like you have to, either you have very few alerts or too many. You cannot, while you are trying to focus on your target, we have maybe too many. So sometimes we get some alerts that are not really alerts, so we have false positives. So we tend to be conservative with the alerts. So, well, we cannot know, but we do some periodical checks on how we are performing with the emails and if data matches. But
Are you online ganger?
if I'm what? Sorry?
Ganger.
Yeah. Well, if there's anything else, to the very beginning, I will share my Twitter account. And if you happen to come to Madrid and work with us one day, meet us, or you want to give a talk in Madrid because you want to meet the community there, contact us. We have a very cool office, and you're very welcome. Thank you.